We are so excited to welcome you to the SPI, ESI, and North America Smart Energy Week virtual trade show. With nearly 200 participating exhibitors from across the renewable energy industry and 100 live education sessions, we are proud to bring you a robust, energy-filled 2 days of opportunity and access to the best of the industry. Take time and visit with all of our exhibitors who are available to live chat with you over the next 2 days. And make sure that you've created your My Show Planner account so that you can interact with all of our exhibitors. Every day, there will be a dedicated live chat time block from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern so that you can chat with the exhibitors. And all of this is brought to you by EDF Renewables. Let's give them a virtual big round of applause for their support.
Now, we would like to recognize each of our sponsors for their support not only for SPI, ESI, and North America Smart Energy Week, but also their support to the industry. They truly contribute to the quality and success of this event. With that, our one and only highest sponsor at the megawatt level, SolarEdge. Also, be sure to check out and explore SolarEdge's interactive 360 virtual booth experience. You can easily access it from their virtual trade show booth, as well as here on the homepage of the virtual trade show. We'd also like to recognize our kilowatt level sponsors, Doosan GridTech, LG, EDF Renewables, Black & Veatch, and Jinko Solar. And for our watt sponsors, Baysfield, Eaton, Block Energy. Our premier sponsors, Enerbank USA, Nearmap, and Veritone. And for our supporting level sponsor, Solar Ranch Development Company.
We are lucky to have some of the best-in-class industry partners any organization could ask for. We'd like to give special recognition to the California Fuel Cell Partnership, the eMERGE Alliance, Forth, and Solar Energy International, whose continued partnership has ensured we provide industry-leading content across the entire renewable energy landscape. Our industry partners play a key role in the success of SPI, ESI, and North America Smart Energy Week, and support our efforts to bring renewable energy industry professionals together to open the conversation about what is impacting the industry, best practices, and more. Now, stay tuned and watch this short instructional video that will walk you through how to create your My Show Planner and successfully navigate our virtual trade show so that you can see exhibitor demonstrations, access collateral, and even live chat through the virtual business cards that have been added by each exhibitor.
Welcome to the virtual event My Planner. This tool has everything you'll need to make the most of your time searching and networking online. While exploring the online directory, you can save exhibitors, products, documents, contacts, webinars, and more. With a My Planner account, you can access exclusive content only available to My Planner users to make the most of your event experience. Creating an account is easy. Simply click the Create Your My Planner option and complete the registration form. Select Yes under the Connect with Exhibitors section to share your name and email with exhibitors you add to your planner. Select Create Your Free Account and you'll be all set to start exploring and saving resources. The online directory includes everything you'll need to explore the event. This intuitive layout allows you to access the search bar, quick links, and a couple of different ways to view your search results. The quick links allow you to quickly access important areas including new products, featured companies, webinars, and special offers. Click into the search box to see all available search options, including a broad keyword search, allowing you to explore a variety of content simultaneously. For example, when searching audio, you will see search results pulled from various content areas, such as exhibitors, product categories, show features, brands, and more. You can also toggle over to the Education menu option at the top of the page to use event-specific search criteria. Choose from two different options when viewing your search results. Option 1 is the grid view, which will present your results as tiles with additional information previewing the details page. The second option is the list view, which will display the same information but within a listed format. Click into the search results on either view to see additional details and options for adding this information to your My Planner. As you start to explore the directory, you'll notice a new notification in the top right corner of your screen. By clicking here, you will be taken into the MYS recommendation engine that will make recommendations based on event-specific activity. This tool uses AI technology to reveal what like-minded attendees are searching for to help you explore every avenue while attending the event. By clicking on the bell icon, you will see your own personal recommended results for exhibitors and education events based on your directory activity. You can click on these results to learn more, add to your My Planner, or dismiss them to make room for additional recommendations. The recommendation engine allows you to see your own personal list of can't-miss companies to start networking with. As you explore the directory, don't forget to save exhibitors, products, and other resources by clicking the plus sign icon. You can then access your saved items in the corresponding sections of your My Planner. Click the My Planner option in the navigation menu to go to your planner homepage. The homepage includes an easy-to-navigate layout. Simply scroll down or navigate to a specific area using the menu options at the top of the page. You can save scheduled events such as networking sessions, training, guest speakers, and more to your My Events calendar to keep track of your schedule. Within the Exhibitors section, you can see your saved exhibitors, mark who you have spoken with, and take notes all in one place. If you are interested in learning more about a new product featured on an exhibitor's listing, you can add them to your My Planner and they will be saved in your product section. Save press releases, white papers, brochures, case studies, links, and other items uploaded by exhibitors in your collateral section. Documents can also be downloaded and saved to your own personal device. Explore show specials to save special offers such as discounts and giveaways that have been posted by exhibitors. View virtual business cards and save them to your contacts section. You can also reach out to these contacts via email through your My Planner account. Your recommendations section will list your own personal recommended results based on your directory activity. It's that easy. My Planner has everything you need to maximize your virtual event and networking experience. The MYS chat is a way for attendees to connect with exhibitors in real time. My Show Planner users can easily engage with exhibitor contacts through the one-to-one chat function available through an exhibitor listing or through the new chat interface within the Planner dashboard. This feature is available to all My Show Planner users with just a few easy steps. Both attendees and exhibitors must first create a Planner account, verify their email, and enable the chat feature in their profile settings to send and receive messages. Using this tool is easy. Simply log into the planner and click the My Chat button. Here, attendees can view their saved contacts along with a full list of all contacts. Any exhibitor who has the green tag labeled Available is currently available for a live chat. To start a chat, attendees can simply click the chat button to the right of the contact's name. They can also start a conversation by clicking the chat button next to the online contact information on the exhibitor's details page. If a contact is not available for a live chat, attendees have the option to reach out by email directly. The contacts listed on the exhibitor details page are based on the information entered in the online contacts section of the exhibitor dashboard. Exhibitor contacts will see any messages they have received when they select the My Chat button. They can network with attendees and see their chat history indefinitely to revisit information when they follow up with leads. If attendees or exhibitors navigate to another part of the online directory, they will receive an alert at the top of the page when they have an unread message. They can click the banner to navigate back to the chat area or close to view unread messages at a later time.
Welcome to SPI, ESI, and North America Smart Energy Week, the largest event in North America for the renewable energy industries, including solar, storage, smart energy, wind, hydrogen and fuel cells, geothermal, and EV infrastructure. Thank you for joining us from your home office. I'm Keith Malone, and I'm with the California Fuel Cell Partnership, and I'll be your hydrogen and fuel cell track ambassador for the next 2 days. So my role is to help you navigate the hydrogen and fuel cells channel and help you learn more about hydrogen and fuel cells and why it's important to all the industries that are here these 2 days. You know, so much has happened over the last year since the last SPI in Salt Lake City. Hydrogen has burst upon the national and international stage in a way that none of us could have imagined. And we've worked closely with our colleagues at SPI to set up presentations and panel discussions that I hope will give you greater insight into what's happening, not just in California, but across North America and even beyond those borders. So some of these presentations include discussions of the US hydrogen economy roadmap that was released earlier this year, the energy storage and energy production projects that are happening in Utah. We're going to learn more about what's happening in China and so much more. And we have a lot of exhibitors here that are innovating and leading the charge in the hydrogen and fuel cell space. And I want to encourage you to head on over to the virtual expo hall to learn more about them. In particular, I want to highlight a few exhibitors that I think are worth your time and exploration. And they include Linde, Nel Hydrogen, Wire Tough Cylinders, and Worthington Industries. You know, I'm really excited for this opportunity to welcome you. I hope I'll have a chance to interact with you at the show and help you learn more about what's going on. Now, if I can be of further assistance about the show or the hydrogen and fuel cell channel, you can reach out to me by email. My email is kmalone, my first initial and my last name, kmalone @cafcp.org. And again, thank you for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hi and welcome. I'm Jennifer Hamilton, Program Manager for Safety, Education, Codes and Standards at the California Fuel Cell Partnership. The CAFCP members collaborate to bring fuel cell electric transportation and hydrogen infrastructure to the market. Our staff supports members in outreach and education to the public, first responders, permitting officials, and decision makers on technical projects and in developing the safety codes and standards that further the commercialization. Earlier this year, a report, Roadmap to a U.S. Hydrogen Economy, was released. For those who'd like to review it as we talk, it can be found on the CAFCP website, cafcp.org, in our resources database. The roadmap was developed in conjunction with McKinsey & Company and EPRI, with input from 20 companies, many of whom are CAFCP members, and some who are new to the voice of hydrogen and fuel cells, which is very exciting. Today, I have the privilege of introducing some very knowledgeable panelists representing a few of the companies who participated in the development of the roadmap. Dave Edwards from Air Liquide is responsible for establishing and maintaining internal and external partnerships with industry, academia, and government entities as needed to advance the technology and business opportunities in hydrogen energy for Air Liquide in the US. Dave has more than 20 years with Air Liquide in R&D and the hydrogen business roles with responsibilities for Air Liquide's investment and projects efforts in California and other regions in the US driving towards the adoption of hydrogen energy and the transportation and power sectors. Next, we have Jerome Grejois, who's the Powertrain Senior Manager at the Hyundai Research Lab in Chino, California. The Hyundai California Lab develops powertrains for zero-emission vehicles, researches eco-technologies marketability, and supports refueling infrastructure development. Mr. Grejois holds a Master's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Prior to joining Hyundai in 2008, he held positions in design, testing, and quality for powertrain systems at Nissan in the United States and Renault in Europe. And then there's Mr. Mark Monroe, who is a principal engineer in Microsoft's Data Center Advancement Development Group, working on future systems for energy, water conservation, and automation. He is a Six Sigma Master Black Belt with a focus on change acceleration in corporate settings. Mark led data center industry consortiums, including Infrastructure Masons and the Green Grid, and served on the board of directors for the Center of Resource Conservation in Boulder, Colorado. He has a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Virginia Tech. The moderator for this panel is Matthew Klipstein. Matthew is a professional engineer with 20 years of experience in the clean tech sector, spanning hydrogen and fuel cells, plug-in electric vehicle infrastructure, and the wind and solar sectors. His consultancy, Electron Communications, focuses on engineering documentation and technical writing. He co-authored the British Columbia Hydrogen Report, contributes to Canada's National Observer, and regularly guests on Canadian syndicated radio. Matthew, I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Again, welcome to the U.S. Hydrogen Economy Roadmap session for SPI, ESI, and North America Smart Energy Week 2020. I am Matthew Klipstein. I will be moderating this session. We want to be efficient with everyone's time, so I'll just pass to our first speaker, Dave Edwards from Air Liquide.
Thank you, Matthew. My name is Dave Edwards. I'm a director for the hydrogen energy business for Air Liquide in the US. And so on this panel, I'll represent hydrogen production, hydrogen distribution, and the experience we have in industrial hydrogen and how we're moving to new energy applications. For those of you who are familiar with Air Liquide, you'll know us as a company that produces many different industrial gases, and hydrogen being one of those. We're a large international company in 80 different countries with about 70,000 employees. But I think what we're here to talk about today is around hydrogen, and Air Liquide has about 5 decades of hydrogen development expertise in the industrial sectors. We produce hydrogen, we distribute hydrogen, we move it by pipeline, we move it by truck, and we handle it both as a gas and as a liquid. And most of those applications are for things like oil and gas, steel, glass, electronics, and transportation applications. And another big application for industrial hydrogen, of course, is in ammonia production for fertilizer applications. When we think about hydrogen of the future, we're thinking about different applications than the industrial applications. And I'd like to tie us back to the Hydrogen Council, which is an international organization of CEOs from the leading companies in the hydrogen business, growing from the original 13 members now to 92 members, representing all different sectors of the economy, all different sectors of the world. And that's reflected in some of the road mapping discussions focused around the US, how that dovetails with the global perspective. But let's talk about some of the things that Air Liquide is doing along this roadmap for investments, especially in North America. There's really 2 big projects that I'd like to capture today. The first one is a new hydrogen production facility located in Nevada. It's a $150 million investment, so a fairly large investment for a company like Air Liquide, producing 30 tons per day of hydrogen that can be produced from renewable natural gas, so essentially renewable liquid hydrogen production, located in North Las Vegas, Nevada, with expected production to start in early 2022. Construction started earlier this year. The second project I'd like to talk about is our largest PEM electrolyzer project, supplying 100% decarbonized hydrogen in Canada. This one is located in Bécancour, which is just north and east of Montreal. It's a $40 million investment, able to produce about 8 tons per day of electrolysis-based hydrogen. And all of this feeds into an existing liquefier that we have at the site, where we have other operations managing industrial hydrogen, for example. And because we can't talk about projects and believe they're real, we can't walk up and touch them today. We'd like to be able to, but all I can show you are pictures. This is pictures of the Nevada construction that started earlier this summer and will proceed through next year. And what you see on the top left is the first forms after the site has been prepped, pouring concrete in the middle of the night for cooler temperatures. And then the remaining 3 pictures are the preparation for our hydrogen storage facility, this being a large sphere for the liquid. And you can see the foundations and the first shell of the construction going in place. So a real project with real outcomes, all focused around this new energy application. And for us, the difference between this project and any other project that we've ever done for hydrogen is that this is aimed 100% at the new mobility markets. This isn't aimed for our traditional industrial sectors. It's built in a location where the customers are in need and where the feedstocks are leading to renewable hydrogen. The next project pictures are around the Bécancour site. Electrolyzers aren't quite as flashy. They tend to be small and they tend to be indoors, but the project for us is just as exciting. And you can see some of the pictures of the electrolyzer units and some of the electrical switchgear that's necessary for these projects. A very different kind of project, but having some of the same applications, and again, dedicated entirely to these new mobility markets, in this case, entirely renewable based on hydropower-based electrolysis projects. One of the questions that we commonly get is, when will electrolysis-based hydrogen really be ready for the market? And I think what we're able to say is that the scale-up has already started, and projects like our project at Bécancour represent the future of electrolysis-style projects globally. Just a few years ago, we saw the very first megawatt-sized electrolysis projects And now we've seen announcements and investments by ourselves, by our competitors, and by other people in the market at equal scale, showing these many tens of megawatt size projects, leading to a future that's going to be hundreds of megawatts, potentially into the gigawatt scale of production for the next phases. And these kind of investments are representative of what we're seeing around the world. So if you're questioning whether electrolyzers and electrolysis-based hydrogen is our future, you can look at the production rates from these projects and determine that we are on the pathway to that being the norm. In addition to these, we've made a lot of other investments with Air Liquide, things like investing in some of the technologies with Hydrogenics, who produces those PEM electrolyzers, but also making investments in some of the users of the hydrogen, for example, First Element Fuels, who runs a network of stations in California. So by forming strong partners and by making these kind of investments, we're very bullish on the future here and looking toward a future of renewable hydrogen in the mobility markets. Thank you very much, and I'll turn this back to Matthew, where we'll hear from some of our other panelists.
Thank you very much, Dave. All right, then I'll switch over to our next speaker. He is Jérôme Grégoire with the Hyundai America Technical Center.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm going to share my screen and hope you can see properly the slide. So I'm working for the Hyundai America Technical Center. I'm located in the greater Los Angeles area, where we've been working on fuel cell on site for about 20 years. And Dave showed us a great future for a renewable fuel being hydrogen, and I'd like to talk a little bit about one application in transportation and what Hyundai is doing in that field. So you may be familiar with our light-duty vehicle, the Hyundai Nexo, that was introduced in the US in 2018. It's currently available in multiple markets. Our primary market is South Korea, where we have about 8,000 vehicles running, but it's also available in Europe, in Australia, and in the US in California. The Nexo is the only application right now as an SUV of a fuel cell vehicle, and the great advantage with fuel cell vehicle is that they have the benefit of being electric, so they have instant torque, very great response, but they combine that with, instead of storing their energy in the shape of a battery, they can make their electricity on demand through hydrogen, and that allows us to get a range of 380 miles on that vehicle, and you can get those 380 miles in less than 5 minutes when you refuel at one of the stations that are available in California. So that's the light duty application. More recently, Hyundai has been communicating on the heavy duty portion of the business. It's a branch of the company that is not known in the US because there's no heavy duty sold over here, but Hyundai has had that application for quite some time in Asia. And more recently in Europe, the first application is an actual fuel cell truck, the X-Scient. It's a Class 8 truck that is being deployed in Switzerland, and where there is an ecosystem that will allow to have 100% renewable fuel. And this Class 8 truck could go up to 500 miles of range. The application that we have in Switzerland is closer to 250, and the expected refueling time is less than 20 minutes, which is comparable to what you would have with a diesel. So this slide kind of shows that the technology is scalable from light duty, SUVs or maybe a little larger vehicles, all the way to a Class 8. And by the way, the current stacks, fuel cell stacks that are powering the X-Scient unit are 2 stacks from the Nexo. So there's really great ability to move from one size of vehicle to the other. So what kind of opportunities are linked to fuel cell? It's a transition to electrification. So fundamentally, it is an electric vehicle, and you can find components like a motor, inverter, and a battery system. This is similar components that you would find in a hybrid electric vehicle or in a battery electric vehicle. And so we benefit greatly from the economies of scale in that field from battery electric vehicles. But additionally to that field, the fuel cell vehicle offers business opportunities in hydrogen storage systems that are mainly carbon fiber based. And then you have a fuel cell system that we call a balance of plant that incorporates a lot of technologies that are somewhat similar to what you have with gasoline or diesel. So the fuel cell stack itself is a unique field, but you have a fuel processing system that brings hydrogen from high pressure to a lower pressure in the front of the vehicle for the stack. You have an air processing system because we need to bring oxygen to that hydrogen to make electricity, and therefore there are pumps and compressors and air filters, and a thermal management system in the cooling of the stack itself and the power electronics. So there's a wide diversity of industries and components that can be made that is a little beyond what you would find in a battery electric vehicle. So Hyundai is doing its share of investments and it believes in the electrification. So here's an example of a complex that is built in the city of Cheongju in South Korea, where we have some buildings that are dedicated to electric propulsion and battery system, but we have also some buildings that are now dedicated to the fuel cell plant. And the right side of that slide kind of indicates all the components that I was talking about that can be made in other facilities and come here to be assembled and create a new generation of powertrain. But beyond the vehicle itself, the hydrogen offers a wide range of opportunities for investment. Hydrogen is really more of an energy conversation. It's beyond just strictly the scope of work of classic OEMs, and you need a full integrated ecosystem in order to make a project successful. So this slide here is really taken from our Switzerland project, where we were able to combine basically a renewable component that was a wish from the company we partnered with, who's providing the infrastructure. There's PEM electrolyzers for the generation. So that's another field of investment. You have transportation of that hydrogen that can also be an opportunity for and right now we convey that mainly by trucks, but maybe there's other applications that could be foreseen on a case by case. There's a distribution of that hydrogen, which is very similar to what you would have with gasoline. So you have employment there as well, and then customers. Obviously, we need a customer that can understand this ecosystem, and there's opportunities there also, depending on how customers purchase vehicles for new business models and going beyond kind of the classic ownership that we're used to. My last slide kind of shows the timeline that Hyundai has been focusing on fuel cell. Everything kind of started in 1998 when R&D basically set up a campus in the city of Mabuk in the Greater Seoul area, and this resulted in 2013 in the first hydrogen SUV electric on the market that was available for lease to customers. That vehicle came in North America in 2014, and then was followed in 2018 by the Hyundai Nexo. And for 2030, we really have a strong leadership in our executive vice chairman, who is seeing Hyundai as a first mover in the hydrogen economy with a wide range of applications. So this is a very strong push from our corporation, and all that in just a little over 20 years. And on that, I'll give the mic back to you, Matt.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jerome. Our third speaker is Mark Monroe, and he's from Microsoft. I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Matthew. So hopefully you can see my screen now. I'm a little different than the other two. These are both previously Dave and Jerome are making hydrogen or making equipment that uses hydrogen. We're actually an end user of this technology. We've been experimenting with hydrogen in data centers. And I wanted to start out by bringing you up to speed a little bit about what we mean by hyperscale. And so I have a couple of slides that talk about this. This is from Microsoft's Ignite conference in November of 2019. And our chairman, CEO rather, Satya Nadella, talked about the amount of storage that's going to be used by all of the cloud companies. This is not just Microsoft. But he says we're going to 175 zettabytes of data by 2025, up from 40 zettabytes of data today. Now, if you don't know what a zettabyte of data is, there's a little guide over on the right-hand side that talks about gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes. A zettabyte is actually 1 billion terabytes, 1 trillion gigabytes. Now, a petabyte will fit into a rack-based system like is pictured there that takes up about 22 square feet. Each of those uses about 17 kilowatts of power. And we need, according to Satya, we need 135 million of those, which is going to take up an area of about 105 square miles in the next 5 years. Now, this is worldwide. Again, it's not just Microsoft. It's scattered around. But if we were to overlay that in Los Angeles, we'd have a square going from Long Beach to Compton, and from Harbor City all the way to Lakewood. So, and by the way, we'd need 2 nuclear power plants to be able to generate the 2.3 gigawatts of power that would be necessary to power this storage. Another example of hyperscale is speed. So that's size in zettabytes, but speed is another thing. You may not think of speed when you look at a building, but this is a picture, an aerial picture of our data center in Quincy, Washington, eastern Washington. Was taken in July of 2018. I was there visiting, and the site looked like this. Less than 18 months later, here's the photograph from Bing Maps. You can see the 2 buildings that we were looking at before that are pointed at by the yellow arrows. And there are 4 more buildings, each of which has more capacity than those original 2 buildings separately. So we've got 6 times the capacity that we had there in 18 months. And the capacity of these buildings is very large. These are 30 megawatt buildings or more. And so that's a lot of cat videos and emails. Just to give you another example of scale, here's a site in eastern US. Boynton, Virginia is where we have one of our data centers, another of our data centers located. You can see in the light yellow outlines the outline of the town of Boynton. In the darker yellow outlines, this is the land that Microsoft has purchased that we plan on putting data centers on. And you can already see the construction has started. And by the way, this picture again is a little bit old from the satellite. It's a couple of months old, maybe a year old. And we filled in all of that dirt scraped off part now with data centers. And our colleagues in the hyperscale business are doing the same thing. There's about 24 companies that are considered hyperscale, and you probably know the names of most of them from the applications that you're familiar with on your computers. Now, the issue is that anybody who owns a data center has the same sort of strategic problem, that we have to use backup power in order to provide the reliability that's necessary for digital infrastructure to operate correctly. And the way that everyone does that today is using diesel generators. Now, the problem is when you have data center campuses that are bigger than towns and that use more energy than cities, having the number of generators that would be necessary to be able to provide that backup power, it's very difficult to even consider getting the air quality permits that would allow us to run that number of generators at a single site. The other thing is that we keep 48 hours of fuel, somewhere between 12 and 48 hours of fuel on site in order to be able to provide backup power in the event of a grid failure for up to that long. And we have refueling systems that manage that as well. So we've been experimenting with hydrogen fuel cells as a replacement to backup generators. We're actually looking at a number of different technologies, hydrogen being one of them. But we completed successfully some tests that put us at about 1/4 of a megawatt, but we've proved durability. We've run them for 48 hours. We've proved that they can absorb load quickly like the diesel generators do if we dump load onto them in the event of a failure. And they produce only water vapor as their output. So this is much better from a permitting standpoint. This is a concept that we have of what it might look like to compare the diesel generator on the left. That's an enclosure that we use that keeps the diesel protected from the weather. And you can see a person-sized door, 2 person-sized doors, to give you an idea of the scale of that device. And at the same scale, what a 3 megawatt hydrogen-powered fuel cell generator might look like with its storage tanks. The hydrogen takes up a little more space. There's probably some vaporizer equipment that needs to go on there. The only way that we can get the amount of storage that we think we need is to use liquid. So these would be liquid tanks. But it gives you an idea of the scale. And from the most part, it looks like it would fit next to the data center. Now, one issue is that I talked about it, if we keep 12 to 48 hours of fuel on site, and we talk about 30 megawatt buildings, pretty soon you get up to where you need to store 100,000 kilograms of hydrogen on site waiting for an outage to occur. So that would be something like a 60-foot liquid hydrogen sphere like pictured on this slide. And obviously each megawatt of the data center IT capacity would go through the equivalent amount of hydrogen as is stored in a liquid hydrogen trailer like is in the foreground every day. So each megawatt would go through. We'd need 30 of those trailers per day if we were powering the hydrogen, the data center in hydrogen. Now, again, with the application of backup power, we would have infrequent use, but we'd have to have large amounts of hydrogen sitting around waiting for that infrequent use in case we needed it. So liquid hydrogen is going to boil off. But we also think that since the generators are non-polluting, we can do more things with them than we can with our diesel generators. And that means participating in a larger hydrogen economy for us. So since data centers are at the center of our world, we put them at the center of our hydrogen economy on this slide. But we think there's the opportunity to pair fuel cell generators with electrolyzers at data center sites, to then be able to do interactive services with the electric grid, to be able to provide firming services where we could absorb additional renewable energy that was not needed at the time, and then put energy back onto the grid as it's needed at other times. And hydrogen, it gives us the ability to store not only hours worth of load shift, but days or even seasonal storage. We think that boil off could be used by partnering with with vehicle fueling applications, like Dave talked about, or potentially material handling, fork trucks. One of our data centers in Wyoming is right next to a Walmart logistics center, and that would be a great partnership to have large hydrogen storage in between the two sites where we kept a minimum amount available for us and used the rest of the storage tank for other applications. Possibly even making hydrogen with electrolyzers and releasing some of that hydrogen to blend in with natural gas lines or even provide hydrogen pipelines, depending on the location. So that's part of the reasons that we're optimistic on hydrogen. Some of the applications that we think we see. Again, we think participating in the larger hydrogen economy is very important for data centers, and that we can move very quickly into this space. If one of us in the hyperscale industry is able to prove out the ability of hydrogen fuel cells and storage to work for our backup power, everybody else will follow very quickly. As we said, the strategic problem for us is that we have to have those diesel generators. So that's my last slide. I'll turn it back over to you, Matthew.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Now, the thinking was that we'd spend just a couple minutes with a couple initial questions for our speakers, just to jog the memory of the of you guys in the audience. And so I want to first turn to Dave. With Air Liquide, it looks like Air Liquide has a very sort of diversified, I don't know if it's called, you call it vertically integrated approach in terms of the hydrogen economy. Do you have data on, say, the number of hydrogen refueling stations Air Liquide is either joint ventured with or owns or is otherwise affiliated with?
Well, around the world, we own and operate several hundred refueling stations. which is a new business for us. Normally, we are selling and buying and selling products directly from at an industrial scale, but not directly to consumers, where we'd be selling fuel as you would at a gasoline station, for example. So that's a new business for us, and we have a lot of experience around the globe. In the U.S., we have a few stations in California and a few stations in the Northeast of the United States. We're not one of the dominant retailers in California today.
Right, sense. And I guess just thinking about the industrial uses of hydrogen, thinking more broadly as we make efforts to decarbonize steel or cement, is the industrial market for hydrogen, I'm sure that will grow, is my perception is that is currently a market dominated by a few major players, much like, I don't know, I guess software. Everything seems to be done by Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, that kind of a thing.
It is at a large industrial scale, especially if you think about some of the hydrogen corridors around the world, where pipelines are actually what's used to bring hydrogen to these large facilities, things like refineries and ammonia plants. Then you have just a relatively few players at that scale in a region, as you can imagine. But globally, there are many people who are in the hydrogen business. And as we think about the new energy economy, a few years ago in hydrogen, I never would have been on a panel with somebody from the transportation sector and somebody from a data center sector. Those are simply not the kind of areas that we would have ever thought of hydrogen being as an energy vector. But when we think about these new applications, now it brings in everybody. We could have Boeing, we could have Airbus, we could have any transportation sector, we could have almost any energy consumer, whether that's from the steel industries, whether that's from the cement industries. Hydrogen has a play. The big difference is the level of development in those different fields. And as you can already see, the automotive sector is a generation ahead of some of the other applications, but backup power coming closely behind, and those industrial sectors will follow. As the price of renewable hydrogen comes down and the availability comes down, we'll see this transition across the entire sector.
Sure. And I guess my last question would be, it seems to me, I might be wrong, that the fact that hydrogen can be used in so many different capacities would make it different from most, like Air Liquide's historical experience with especially gases, apart from maybe the first time people liquefied nitrogen or oxygen. I would imagine it's very rare for a specialty gas or a gas to suddenly look like it has this massive, or have this massive upcoming market.
Certainly, from a market perspective, hydrogen is very exciting because a transition like this happens sort of once in a generation for a product line or for a company like Air Liquide, for example. So it's very exciting about what the potential is. We're already seeing it's more than just potential, it's reality. And you mentioned the flexibility of hydrogen. One of the real strengths is you can produce hydrogen in a number of different ways. There isn't just a single source. And of course, there's many uses for hydrogen, and there's many different ways that it can be carried. So it becomes much more ubiquitous as an energy carrier than just simply as a product used for a production line or for an energy storage or for energy production, because it in some ways can do all of those different aspects when it's needed to. So the flexibility will be one thing that hugely differentiates it.
Okay, cool. All right, I guess turning to Jerome then, on Dave's theme of a once in a generation shift, it would seem that in transportation, batteries and now hydrogen fuel cells are giving us this once in a generation, maybe first time in a century, shift away from liquid combustion fuels. With respect to Hyundai, can you speak to how the company is focusing on this? Are you gradually tailing off the combustion in favor of these zero emission technologies?
Yeah, so I think you're right. Mentioning it's a once in a generation, is maybe once in a century. Maybe at the very early days of the 20th century, the industry turned from battery electric to fossil fuel, basically because it was offering a lot of flexibility. And then currently, with the side effects of fossil fuels, we're basically kind of preparing for that turn. So Hyundai is kind of unique among OEMs as a company. We basically developed a whole portfolio of applications. So there's still some applications for some time that we see with fossil fuel, but we work on hybrids, and for the zero emission, we work both on battery electric and on the fuel cell side, because we see them as maybe some technology will have a better application depending on the duty cycle or the size of the vehicle that you want to place. As far as the pace at which things will change, Hyundai introduced, I think, its first battery electric vehicle in 2012. It was actually a Kia. Hyundai and Kia is the same kind of Hyundai Motor Group. So the Kia Soul, I think, was our first battery electric. Today, I believe we have like 4 options on battery electric and 1 on fuel cell. And you can expect that this pace will increase. Now, one thing with battery electric vehicles is they're a lot easier to sell because you don't need to have a brand new infrastructure put in place. So you can, basically sell it to customers and then expect them to refuel at home, or maybe using a public transportation refueling infrastructure. But that, we believe, will have kind of its limits. And the advantage of the fuel cell is then you can scale it up to larger vehicles that have a higher duty cycle. Your personal vehicle, the statistics are you use it 5% of the time. But as soon as we turn into the commercial application, 95% idling is not a business model. And therefore, you're in a position where you need to be able to refuel really quickly and in an affordable way. Yes, it's turning, and you'll see more and more applications of ZEV, both with the battery electric and the fuel cell with Hyundai. And the new application, things that will be new, I think, for people in Europe and in the US, is the fact that Hyundai also has a commercial vehicle lineup, and that maybe the first applications for Hyundai in that field will be with zero-emission vehicle and not with fossil fuel vehicles.
Right. Okay, I guess so that the difference, the complementary nature of batteries and fuel cells makes me think of exoskeletons in nature. Insects, things all over the size of crabs maybe, often have exoskeletons, but if you want to go any bigger, large cats, dogs, horses, hippos, whales, then you have interior skeletons, endoskeletons, so vertebrates. So yeah, it does seem to be quite complementary. You had mentioned ecosystems as being very important to initiate, to get the critical mass maybe, for the hydrogen solutions, hydrogen fuel cell solutions. Would you think that then maybe trucking offers the first mover or the first initiation that allows then a cluster to grow?
I think so. The business model for light duty and commercial is different. Even though you may sell maybe a fuel cell vehicle like the Nexo to somebody who has an adventurous spirit, their expectation is when they pay $400 a month is that it will just work and offer the same level of service. And so if you go light duty, you need to have basically a network to retail, and you need to have dealers to service everywhere. If you go with the commercial, then we can start maybe with projects that are more localized. But you still need an ecosystem because the commercial vehicles use a huge amount of hydrogen compared to light duty. And if you think of a fleet of only 1,000 trucks, which is not that much, 1,000 truck is basically requires a plant like the one that Dave showed us that was in the construction, would be about 30 tons a day. Any 1,000 truck that you deploy in the market basically will require one of those plants. And recently Hyundai announced that maybe hopefully by 2030 there would be about 10,000 trucks from Hyundai in the US. So that would require 10 of those plants to be built in a decade. So we need to have that ecosystem, which is more, if the manufacturer is the left leg and the hydrogen infrastructure provider is the right leg, we need to move at the same pace because we can't afford to have a fleet that cannot run or have fuel that doesn't have a way to be used.
So that's very good. I'm sure Dave is very happy to hear that. Now, returning to Mark, I know that our panelists have some hard stops in this pre-recorded session. Mark, I was particularly blown away by the data consumption of these data centers. You'd mentioned that you'd need 2 to 2.3 gigawatts of power equivalent to be able to provide in the case of outages. And yeah, the fact that I would imagine you'd be looking at liquid hydrogen in this case, with figuring out something to do with the boil off and then some sort of additional incremental supply so that you can always have your 48 hours. Is that kind of the thinking there for your mission?
Yeah, I think so. That again, given the volumes, we haven't seen anything other than liquid hydrogen. We've looked at a couple of the other possible carriers, ammonia or liquid organics and things like that. But remember, we're going to be in an emergency situation if we're using these generators. And having more systems in line complicates the backup power strategy. And we'd hate to have our ammonia converter, for example, go down.
That's right.
Which would then take down the data center. So we're encouraged about liquid hydrogen, and we're looking at very large storage, like we showed. Even with the possibility of you look at NASA's new liquid hydrogen storage tank that has in-tank reliquefaction, and is 6 times more efficient than taking it all the way back up to the outside and then liquefying it back down, or using the gas. So we think there are solutions to some of these issues for the more or less unique application that we've got.
I suppose where pipelines are available, that would be another possibility. You'd have a thick pipeline. My more interesting question is that these projections on your data, on the Zeta, not Zeta,
zettabytes.
Zettabytes.
Yes.
Zettabytes. That only goes to 2030. I can only imagine that the power requirements and our human data requirements for the year 2035, 2040 will only accelerate faster and higher, which actually, I guess, again, Dave as a supplier would be even more excited about. Yeah. And is this trend likely to continue in terms of the mass rollout of more and more data centers, or would like chip speeds or something, or memory density allow you to sort of level off at some point?
Predictions are hard to make in any industry, but we like to talk about internet years like dog years, and there's 7 for every regular one, and so we know that technology is going to continue to advance. Right now, what's happening is that data centers are getting more and more dense. We're stacking more and more computers inside them in order to meet the demands. And you look at it, the data center industry is driven by data consumption, digital infrastructure consumption. And so I don't see any end in sight of higher resolution mobile phones, more video interactive type of applications, more applications that do more things, more translation, more real time. And so we think that the data center infrastructure industry is going to be around for a long time and growing at a very fast pace for that time frame.
So while that gives me a lot of enthusiasm, or adds to my enthusiasm for the hydrogen sector, fuel cell sector, it does make me give me pause, because I guess that's another factor we have to make sure is zero carbon, even as we go through this transition. We might use less energy for transport, as COVID may be showing us, but we'll certainly have an increased driver demand as hopefully everyone in the world gets to enjoy the living standards we do. Not to get all philosophical on this, I'll turn this back now to Jennifer, and my understanding is that when we have this session played live, we'll have our panelists, perhaps to myself as well, able to take chat messages or other things during the, after this pre-recorded session, but during the actual session.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers, Dave, Jerome, and Mark, and to Matthew for moderating. Please visit the CAFCP website for a copy of the report, as well as other great resources. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Aloha and welcome to the Solar Coaster Live Show. We are here to discuss a great adventure that Jay had with Cuttyhunk Island in Massachusetts.
Absolutely. So microgrids are a big part of the conversation for us, coming from Hawaii specifically. Most folks don't know Hawaii as a state is multiple islands, and none of them are actually connected in any way, shape, or form for power. So we all exist truly islanded in that fashion. So we pay a lot of attention when other people are doing things. Cuttyhunk Island is actually off the coast of Massachusetts, has only about 180 electric meters, population that explodes through the summer, but then goes way down. And in the wintertime, and they had always run on diesel power. So I went there to check out their new solar and battery system.
I got to tell you, Jay, that video is so inspiring. And I remember I was meant to go with you and I didn't make it, and I'll regret it forever.
Absolutely. You're a sailing guy anyway. You saw those intro, that intro. But the biggest, most impactful thing for me was just talking to the folks on the ground. They'd lived their entire lives on the island, listening to that little diesel powerhouse. And all of a sudden it was silent. And it was like for a while, it was just like, what's wrong? There's something off for them. And so it was just great for them to finally be able to enjoy the island as it was meant to be.
That's something we don't always think about, right? It's like, of course, there's all these different value propositions to renewables, but one of them on a very small island like Cuttyhunk Island in Massachusetts is that you have that sound pollution. Not something that would kind of really necessarily jump right out in front of our minds, but in an environment like that, when you've got a generator running all the time, pretty much, that changes the character of the place that you're in. And what an amazing value proposition. Before we turn this off here, what was the overall percentage? Was it about 2/3 renewables at the end of the game?
Yeah, they're up to about 80% now in the peak season, which is absolutely fantastic, and 100% during the wintertime. So like I said, we've done a lot of content on island microgrids over the years. Molokai, episode 61, this Cuttyhunk Island story, episode 69. You can catch them all at solar-coaster.com under podcasts.
Hi, my name is Christine Wiley, and I'm the Executive Director for GTI's Hydrogen Technology Center. Today, I'll be presenting on the Low Carbon Resources Initiative, a public and private partnership that will lead the way towards deep decarbonization. The Low Carbon Resources Initiative is a collaboration we've established with EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute, to address decarbonization across all sectors of the economy. It's a collaborative effort to advance the technologies needed for economy-wide decarbonization. We know that the challenge is great, and we will need to explore many options in order to reach all sectors of the economy. And we feel that by leveraging the knowledge, scale, and diverse experience of the LCRI sponsors, EPRI, GTI, and other key collaborators, we can move the needle to make way for key technologies that can be deployed and commercially available in the post-2030 timeframe. We have made significant progress in terms of reducing our CO2 emissions by using solutions and technologies such as converting over from coal to natural gas for power generation, integration of renewables such as wind and solar, increasing our energy efficiency, and also looking at electrification in use cases where it makes sense. But as we start to move towards deep decarbonization economy-wide, we need to start looking at other low carbon resources such as hydrogen, things like ammonia, biofuels, and synthetic fuels. And that's what the Low Carbon Resources Initiative is going to focus on. The LCRI is a 5-year global collaborative that is focused on low carbon resources such as hydrogen. We will look to identify and accelerate low carbon technologies, look to conduct technology assessments, inform stakeholders, and look to perform pilot and demonstration scale type projects for a broad range of technologies and solution pathways. The LCRI was launched in August with a key set of anchor sponsors. Those sponsors are listed here, and they make up a broad range of companies from the electric and gas industries. As you can see, there is good diversity in terms of the assets that are represented, in terms of the types of companies who are sponsoring, ranging from smaller electric and gas utilities to some of the largest combo gas and electric utilities such as Southern, Duke, and Dominion. We also have participation from OEMs such as Mitsubishi and GE. We're excited and thankful and appreciative for these anchor sponsors to sign on to the LCRI and to champion our efforts moving forward. The LCRI will address low carbon resources or alternative energy carriers such as hydrogen, ammonia, biofuels, and synthetic fuels. And it will focus on the entire value chain. So really that entire ecosystem as it relates to these low carbon resources. We will look at technologies and solutions for the production of these types of low carbon resources. So for example, when we look at hydrogen, we'll look at various technologies to produce clean hydrogen, whether that's green hydrogen coming from electrolysis or blue hydrogen coming from the use of existing fossil fuel assets such as natural gas. And we will also look at the delivery and storage of these low carbon resources. So taking advantage of our existing infrastructure, such as our existing and vast pipeline infrastructure to be able to move and store and deliver hydrogen and other low carbon resources. And because we are focused on economy-wide decarbonization, we will also look at the various economic sectors and end-use applications as it relates to these low carbon resources. So take, for example, hydrogen. We will look at using hydrogen in economy sectors that are hard to abate, such as transportation, long-haul transportation, power generation, and also look at other applications, whether that's used for heating in buildings or in industrial uses, which are also difficult to decarbonize sectors. The LCRI will focus on collaboration and broad stakeholder engagement when it comes to our technical approach. There will be several key elements associated with our approach, one being a request for information, establishing a technical collaboration network for broad engagement with the R&D community, establishing key touch points with our LCRI membership, as well as broad industry engagement. We will also use all of these elements in our primary work streams. So within the LCRI, one of the first milestones and deliverables associated with the program will be to establish our roadmap. So this roadmap will help guide our technical execution of various R&D studies as we work towards decarbonization economy-wide. We will also be establishing a technology pipeline. We recognize that as we work towards decarbonization, we will need a suite of technologies and solutions that can be deployed, and that having the optionality and flexibility will be important as we move forward for our customers. We will also be conducting an integrated energy systems analysis, so looking at a macro level type of modeling effort to understand the various technologies and pathways that will make sense as we move towards decarbonization. A critical work stream within the LCRI is the development and use of an integrated energy system model that will build on existing capabilities. The integrated energy system analysis process is intended to help guide the establishment of LCRI research priorities by studying scenarios for greenhouse gas emissions reductions, identifying low-cost technology development pathways, and quantifying impacts of targeted policies on technical, economic, and environmental aspects of economy-wide decarbonization. It will include the incorporation of changes in energy system composition, including electricity, fossil fuels, biofuels, and low-carbon energy carriers by sector and technology to drive low-carbon targets. Energy end-use analysis by technology across the transportation, residential, commercial, and industrial sectors. It will also include an evaluation of changes in generation mix, capacity, and utilization by generation technology, renewable integration, interstate electricity flows, and electricity prices to achieve low-carbon targets. The modeling of greenhouse gas, CO2, and methane emissions associated with fossil fuel resource energy development, extraction, distribution, and end use, and land use CO2 emissions associated with biofuels will also be conducted. One of the initial key tasks associated with the LCRI is the development of our R&D roadmap. This roadmap will outline the R&D gaps that we've identified, opportunities to continue to accelerate low-carbon technologies, and to look at where our R&D investments need to be made in order to address decarbonization economy-wide. Associated with the roadmap will be a couple key activities. One, making sure that we conduct a comprehensive and global literature review of what's happening with low-carbon resources, such as hydrogen, developing a series of state of technology reports, and then putting together ultimately what our R&D roadmap will look like for the LCRI. So really, what research are we going to focus on? The types of projects that will be executed as we strive towards decarbonization economy-wide. In addition to the integrated energy systems analysis, as well as the development of our R&D roadmap, we will also be establishing a technology pipeline. So we recognize that a number of solutions and technologies will need to be deployed in order to reach economy-wide decarbonization. And as such, we intend to identify a portfolio of technologies that can be utilized and deployed post-2030. So we'll look at technologies across the broad spectrum of the development phase. So really looking at early stage technologies, technologies that need some additional validation at the laboratory scale, and then moving more towards those larger pilot scale and demonstration type projects, where we will be able to demonstrate a network of hydrogen technologies to be able to move towards decarbonization. One of the key elements associated with the LCRI is establishing our technical collaboration network. So this is part of our stakeholder engagement and really an opportunity for us to engage with the broader R&D community. We are looking for organizations such as universities, other R&D organizations, and national labs to participate in the technical collaboration network. We recognize that the R&D that needs to be conducted can only be done by GTI and EPRI, and that we must leverage all of our resources when it comes to the broader R&D community. So this will provide us an opportunity to engage with other stakeholders on key aspects associated with the LCRI, as well as provide a network that we can lean on when it comes to conducting peer reviews of various research studies, as well as key milestones within the LCRI. So we're excited to be able to establish this, and we look forward to having broader engagement with the R&D community as we continue to execute studies under the LCRI. Through the establishment of the Technical Collaboration Network, we anticipate not only being able to share knowledge and information through various meetings, but also to be able to offer opportunities for journal publications, as well as conferences that are focused on the LCRI research. Again, this is really to focus on that broad stakeholder engagement with the R&D community. And so we hope that you consider joining the TCN and engaging in the LCRI. Another opportunity to engage with the LCRI is through our request for information, which is specifically seeking information and input for 3 separate potential opportunities that span the technology development cycle. So for example, we'll be looking at early stage technologies, proof of concept type of projects, and then the larger pilot and demonstration scale type projects. We're looking for basic information on the technology and the topic and what need it serves and why it's important. We don't anticipate this to be a burdensome process, designed to be relatively light lift, so about 5 pages, but still while giving enough information for us to understand the basics and to address what you see as the needs are as they relate to low carbon resources. I encourage you to learn more about the LCRI and visit our website at lowcarbonlcri.com, and also to tune in to a couple of the technical webinar series that we have coming up, with the first one on October 22nd discussing the pathways to decarbonization. Thank you for taking the time to hear about the LCRI. GTI and EPRI look forward to continued engagement on this important initiative.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining this webinar. I'm Jean-Louis Kindler. I'm CEO of Waste2H, and I'm particularly grateful for being part of this event this week, knowing that originally the Smart Energy Week was primarily geared towards solar power and renewable solar energy. And gradually, we see this event moving towards other renewable energy sources. And today, I'm particularly happy to tell you a little bit about a very, very important emerging energy source, which is hydrogen. Lots of people seem to consider that hydrogen comes into competition with solar electricity. Actually, what we do believe is that being able to generate energy out of waste, turn that waste into hydrogen, and use that hydrogen as an energy source is an absolutely perfect complement to solar and also wind-based electricity generation. I will turn on my presentation, sharing the screen right now, and we will start in a few minutes. So again, thank you very much for joining this webinar. We will be talking about upcycling waste to produce renewable hydrogen for microgrids, power generation, and mobility. Upcycling waste, well, it is extremely important because, as you probably all are very much aware, there is a lot of waste on Earth. Today, there is approximately 8 billion tons of plastic waste on Earth. There is plastic in the ocean. We all know about the ocean-bound plastic. There is plastic waste underground, on the ground, on our roadsides, even, of course, in landfills, and even in our bodies, where now some scientists and medical institutions have found plastic nanoparticles that actually are residing in our organism. So really, we are just surrounded by plastics, and it is not something that is going to stop anytime soon, because we are producing over 300 million tons of that plastic per year. And unfortunately, we are only truly recycling only a small fraction of it. So about 240 million tons of plastic that is not being processed is added each year to that 8 billion tons that is already present. Of course, we talk about plastic, but it's not only plastic. There is approximately 2 billion tons of waste being buried each year into landfills. You see this beautiful photo on the right. Well, there are definitely too many of those on the Earth. That's in Europe, that's in the US, and of course also in emerging countries. Basically, anywhere there is human activity, there is waste. And we are talking about waste. Now we talk about waste to hydrogen. And hydrogen, for quite some time, has been considered as a white elephant. Everybody was wondering when hydrogen would be happening. Well, it's not when any longer. It actually is. It is now. It is. We are living in right now at a time where the hydrogen demand in Europe is expected to reach approximately 2 million tons in 2030. That's almost tomorrow. In North America, California, the state of California is probably one of the most advanced in hydrogen economy, and we expect approximately 500,000 tons hydrogen demand by the same year, by 2030. And where will this come from? Well, it will come from public transportation projects like fuel cell buses, fuel cell shuttles. Of course, automotive manufacturers are getting into this market. We already see Toyotas, Hondas, Hyundais, Mercedes-Benz is also coming, bringing fuel cell electric vehicles to the market, and also, of course, heavy-duty vehicles like trucks, forklifts, or other port logistic equipment that are gradually turning to hydrogen-based solutions. And why hydrogen? Well, hydrogen is renewable, or hydrogen has to be renewable. It is a clean source of energy. When hydrogen is being consumed, the only output of that consumption is water. There is no CO2 being emitted, no carbon monoxide, no hazardous emissions, no particles, not a single greenhouse gas. And it is important to realize that renewable energy is not only solar, it's not only wind. And the public today, when hearing about renewable energy, usually would think about solar, about wind. Again, we are totally for this type of energy. We do believe, and we know that these are absolutely necessary, but there are applications where solar electricity, wind electricity, hydroelectricity will not be enough. And most of these applications relate to applications where today we are using fuel like diesel oil, like gasoline, applications where the users require a quick refill, applications where the users require a lot of power, like heavy-duty vehicles, and also possibly long-range mileage, for example, again, trucks or buses. Also, long-term storage is something that is much easier done with hydrogen compared with batteries, who although having made a lot of progress in terms of cost, in terms of storing capacity, still are showing a few challenges. I mentioned hydrogen being renewable. Reality is today that only about 4% of the hydrogen being produced on Earth, that's between 50 and 70 million tons, is actually renewable. The rest, 96%, is a fossil source. It's made out of either out of coal or out of natural gas. And also, truth is, the primary applications for hydrogen today are crude oil refining. Hydrogen is being used to remove sulfur that is present in what is called sour crude oil, so that it can be cleaner and better suited for our today's internal combustion engines. Of course, there are pathways for renewable hydrogen. The primary pathway today is renewable electricity-based electrolysis. Most projections about renewable hydrogen production are considering this electrolysis as the pathway for renewable hydrogen production. But we do believe that there is a potential third pathway, another solution, and that would be biomass and waste. The primary reason for that is waste to hydrogen solutions, first, are predictable. They operate continuously 24/7. And while doing that, they are also addressing another major environmental issue, which of course is waste. When designed as small-size distributed systems, these solutions improve waste logistics, make our environment better, and also can provide a decentralized energy production. We're talking about the microgrids of the future, the waste logistics and the waste processing microgrids, as well as the energy production microgrids. The solutions like ours, like the one at Waste we are today promoting and commercializing, are of course cleaner than incineration, but also at the same time they address another major challenge that is today presented to waste management companies, which is landfill diversion mandates. Lots of states, lots of countries are trying to reduce the impact on landfills and are actually issuing mandates to the waste processing industry so that they reduce the quantity of waste being sent to landfill, we are offering a solution like this. We talk a lot about waste, but actually there is already a renewable source of energy that everybody knows, that's biomass. It's being used for biofuel production, also for other applications like cosmetics, perfumes, etc. But a biofuel, when used in a car, and you may know that there actually is a fraction of biofuels in the gasoline we are using today. Well, those biofuels are still emitting CO2 and other greenhouse gases. Hydrogen, as you can see on the photo on the bottom right side of this slide, the only tailpipe emission from a hydrogen car is water. This young lady on the treadmill and running under a bubble is literally fed with the tailpipe. And believe me, it comes out of video, and she didn't die after 30 seconds. This is definitely a really, really clean emission solution that potentially would replace what we are using today and would be cleaner than even biofuels. And it is not just a dream. The Department of Energy, the US Department of Energy, and the Oak Ridge National Lab have issued a report in 2017 called the Billion Ton Report. And that report basically states and demonstrates that there is approximately 1 billion ton biomass available in the US, potentially. This billion ton biomass, it actually is equivalent to about 50 million tons hydrogen. That's the current worldwide production. But that also is, in terms of energy, it is the equivalent of 90% of the current US annual gas consumption. So it's not just a dream. It's not just something that could not possibly happen. There is enough waste and biomass in our country to actually replace fossil fuels and fossil origin transportation fuels. And it has a lot of advantages. The thermochemical conversion processes that are being used to convert biomass into hydrogen, most of them are self-sufficient. They can run on. They do not need external energy sources to operate. They can produce either a gas or liquid fuel or hydrogen like ours without needing an external source of energy. They are clean, so they significantly reduce the current greenhouse gas emissions. They basically have no liquid effluent. There is no waste coming out of it, except maybe one single output of carbon dioxide that, because the source is biomass, is basically neutral. It does not add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. It merely replaces it. But because it comes from a single output, there are further beneficial uses for this CO2 that we will talk about later. And I said earlier in our introduction that hydrogen or waste to hydrogen is not here to compete with solar electricity. What we need to realize is today the electricity production infrastructure worldwide is generating about 20,000 terawatt-hour of energy per year. That's worldwide energy production. At the same time, the fuel consumption in terms of energy is 31,000 terawatt-hour, also worldwide per year. And again, this is not an if, it is a when, because it is already happening. When battery electric vehicles will gain importance, will gain market share, what will happen is that there will be an additional need that will be transferred from the fossil fuel, from the fuel consumption to the infrastructure, because battery electric vehicles need to be charged. And today, there is only maybe 20% worldwide of the electricity being produced that is produced from renewable sources. So solar, wind, they are already facing a major challenge to really become the mainstream energy production source. Should we add the added requirements for battery electric vehicles charging, we are further moving that threshold where solar and wind would become the primary energy source. What we can do, what our solutions can do, biomass and waste to hydrogen, is complete this energy production by using not solar, not wind as a source, but by using biomass, and still be able to produce either electricity to charge battery electric vehicles or directly hydrogen for fuel cell electric vehicles. The concept for our solution is, as you can see, it's very simple. We have an industrial site, a plant, and we feed this plant with chemically organic feedstock. Chemically organic feedstock, it means that it contains carbon and hydrogen. We use the carbon as the energy source to extract the hydrogen that is in this feedstock. Hydrogen goes on the right. This is our output. It's the product out of our process. And we only have two byproducts. One is ash. It's the inert minerals that are contained in the biomass and the waste. And the other byproduct is this flue gas I was talking about earlier, the flue gas that contains carbon dioxide, which again, it is important to realize that this carbon dioxide does not add greenhouse gas to the atmosphere. Our solution has actually been engineered and developed in Japan over the past 20 years. What you can see on the left is the photo of the very first pilot that was built between 2002 and 2005. And on the right side, you have the current pilot. It is the fourth generation of this technology that is in operation in Joso in Japan. This unit is treating sewage sludge as well as other waste streams, including plastics, paper, etc. And we offer our solution in basically two designs. One is a 1 ton per day capacity, 1 ton per day waste processing capacity that is transportable. And the other standard design comes as a 24 ton per day processing capacity. It is a stationary system that more or less looks like the one you can see on the left side of this slide. How do we do this? Who are we? Waste2H is a partnership between Japan Blue Energy, the developer of this technology, who's based in Japan, and a group of investors gathered under a company called Clean Energy Enterprises. We are based in Long Beach, California, and from Long Beach, California, we are providing engineering, construction, as well as commercial developments for the systems that embed this technology developed by Japan Blue Energy. So we are not system operators. What we do is we build, sell systems to potential users, either companies who have a problem with waste and want to process waste in a clean and efficient manner, or companies, operators who want to enter this emerging market, which is renewable hydrogen production. The solutions we offer are decentralized energy production solutions. That means being able to process between 8 and 48 tons per day of waste, and out of this waste, extracting between 300 kilograms and 2 tons of hydrogen per day. Just as a reference, the average gasoline stand or the average hydrogen filling station would consume approximately 1 ton per day. So what you have here really is the hydrogen and energy station of the future. Actually, that future is not so far away. We can probably say it's the station for the 21st century, because those systems are available now. So what do we put on our systems? We put biomass, of course, but we can also use all sorts of different waste streams. That's plastics, that's sewage sludge, that's municipal solid waste, but that is also hazardous waste like medical pathogenic waste streams. They can come, all these can come as single streams or can be mixed together. And what we do again in our system is we use the carbon that is contained in this feedstock and as an energy source to extract the hydrogen that this feedstock also contains. This hydrogen can be used directly as a gas for clean mobility applications. And wherever there is no application yet for clean mobility and for fuel cell vehicles, this hydrogen can be directly injected into a stationary fuel cell and produce power locally. So again, what we have here is a local, decentralized approach to waste stream management and clean energy production. Applications for this? Well, I'm maybe a little redundant here, but the primary application for our solutions is hydrogen production for the clean mobility market. Hydrogen is still presenting a few challenges in terms of logistics. Hydrogen is not a very dense gas. It needs to be compressed to be moved around. The fact that our systems are decentralized allows the processing of waste locally. This is very important, for example, for medical waste processing. As you can see on the bottom photo, you don't want to send hazardous, potentially pathogenic waste onto long distances for remote processing. We want to process this locally. And also, we want to produce hydrogen where this hydrogen will be needed. Directly, for example, in a hydrogen filling station, or in a remote community where this hydrogen will be used for power generation, or also to fill the tanks of the clean mobility vehicles that are coming today. We were talking about being carbon neutral. The solar electricity and the solar pathway to hydrogen are carbon neutral. Those pathways are fully decarbonized, and they are the primary motive behind what you can see on this on the right side, the chart that you can see on the right side of this slide, which has been issued by the California Energy Commission and shows the pathway to carbon neutrality, this happening around the year 2040. Well, using biomass and waste as a hydrogen source offers an opportunity to go even beyond being merely carbon neutral, but actually when combining our solutions with carbon capture and sequestration technologies, the fact that CO2 comes from one single output point makes this carbon and capture and sequestration technology easier to implement together with our solutions. And in that case, what happens is that this renewable carbon that comes from the atmosphere that was part to the production of the biomass and of the municipal solid waste that we are processing, well, this carbon is effectively taken out of the atmosphere and can be sent out underground or can be sequestered in areas or in applications where it will never come back to the atmosphere. This is the definition of carbon negativity, and this is what we can offer as a decentralized solution. In that case, you saw the concept earlier. Well, it's kind of simple. We keep our system, but rather than sending the CO2 to the atmosphere, we send this CO2 through a carbon capture and storage or sequestration solution, and that carbon goes underground. That way, we reach carbon negativity. I kept talking about our system being decentralized. Power microgrids are truly needed and are happening worldwide. From our state in California, we are unfortunately seeing situations like the wildfires, for example, that are demonstrating the need for microgrids. Centralized power, when suffering interruptions or when suffering maintenance stops or other climate or atmospheric events? Well, power shortages are happening. What we offer and what we do propose is a solution that would not only the power generation microgrid make a reality, but that would also add another dimension to those microgrids, and that dimension, of course, is both waste management, waste being processed near its point of production, but also hydrogen production, and that hydrogen could directly be used as a fuel. And as you can see in the figures at the bottom of this slide, we only have about 60, 70 hydrogen fueling stations in the United States today. That's compared with 110,000 gasoline stands. Of course, the demand for hydrogen is definitely not as high as what it is for gasoline today, but there is a major need arriving today, and this will keep growing. You probably remember the trend on the California hydrogen demand, starting from 500,000 tons in 2030, going up to more than 4 or 5 million tons a few years later. Well, this demand will be to complete and add the hydrogen filling stations that will be needed nationwide to cover the fuel production grid. I mentioned a 24-ton per day system earlier. Typically, this is what we see as a standard design, as a modular design, what could become the station of the future. 24 tons per day of waste contains approximately 1.5 tons of hydrogen. Going through our system, we can extract about 1.2 tons out of this 1.5 tons, and 1.2 tons of hydrogen is the equivalent of approximately 240 fuel tanks served per day, fuel tanks for passenger vehicles. If there is no demand yet for hydrogen, this 1.2 ton of hydrogen can be injected into a stationary fuel cell where it will generate a mix of electricity and heat. Typically, 1.2 tons of hydrogen per day is the equivalent of 1.1 megawatts power generation. Thank you very much. This is where I have finished with my presentation. I will be happy to answer emails, questions via emails or maybe via this platform. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Hi, Jean-Louis.
Hi, Cassandra.
Thought I would ask you a few questions.
All right, please go ahead.
How does waste to H fit into the hydrogen economy?
Well, today we are reaching commercialization today. So hydrogen market today is approximately 50 million tons, as I said, and it's gradually growing. And we can see major emergence in the western states of the United States, and as well, and also in Europe for mobility applications. We see more and more fuel cell buses coming online. We saw that there was about a week ago there was a plane that started flying with hydrogen. So it really is happening today. And what we will fit in, what we are currently fitting in, we actually have just submitted a commercial proposal for a system that will produce hydrogen for clean mobility. We come here as potentially a third pathway to complement renewable hydrogen production from electrolysis. Renewable electricity-based electrolysis is today considered as the most simple and the potentially cheapest way of producing hydrogen. We believe that we do have a solution that is equally cheap, very competitive, and that on top of that will solve another major environmental issue that we are all experiencing today, which is waste piling up everywhere. So we are a perfect fit for the hydrogen economy.
Can you process any type of waste?
That's the point. There are a few thermochemical conversion solutions for hydrogen production on the market, but most of them are quite limited in the type of waste that they can process or in the variations in the quality of the waste they can process. Our solution is inherently stable. Our solution is by design able to address those variations in quality that are happening all the time when treating municipal solid waste, for example. And municipal solid waste is something that we treat easily. Municipal solid waste, as the name says, is a mix of everything. It's textile, it's paper, it's rubber, it's plastics. All these coming together as a big feedstock stream. And this is typically the kind of thing that we are processing.
How can your company and its process provide safe disposal of coronavirus contaminated waste? And is this a problem? Should we be worried about this?
We should definitely be worried about coronavirus and the safe disposal of all the waste that is surrounded and that is around those coronavirus. Well, that is around places where coronavirus is, which is basically everywhere. And well, there are, of course, the medical industry is taking most care in preventing the risk of spillage and the risk of having medical waste not being processed correctly. But still, there is a lot of logistics behind waste processing. Typically, a hospital or those COVID testing sites that we can see now in our stadiums, etc. They have medical waste. They have a waste that needs to be processed. And what happens is that it is put into what they call red bags that are sealed and that are gathered and then carried, of course, again, with a lot of precautions. They are carried away in another remote area to be processed there. And what we offer, I keep saying that our solution is a decentralized solution. What we believe, particularly for medical waste, is in a system that would be installed directly on the hospital site with minimal human manipulation, directly taking the waste from where it is being produced, processing it at a very high temperature. Our system runs at 1000 degrees C, which is it's actually 5 or 6 times higher than what the EPA requires for medical waste sanitation. And not only it destroys the waste, but it extracts the hydrogen that is contained in it. And with that hydrogen, we produce electricity for that same hospital. And hospitals need electricity because they have life-sustaining equipment and they cannot afford being victims of power shortages.
It seems like a much better way to dispose of medical waste than simply burning it, especially with the higher temperature.
Definitely. The incineration, there are actually countries in Europe and in Australia and New Zealand have much more stringent regulations on medical waste processing. And that is because of the mad cow disease that our young generations probably never heard about. But this mad cow disease was caused by actually a protein called a prion. And prions, they move around. They are primarily found in the brain and in some tissues in animals. And you need to reach 1000 degrees C to actually destroy those prions. So medical waste and potentially hazardous waste needs to be treated at least at 1000 degrees C so that we make sure that we do not have any risk of being contaminated by those prions. And today, the medical waste regulations in the United States, again, they do not even go to that level. So we actually not only we are a safer solution because we are considerably reducing the risk of spillage due to logistics errors, but we also are doing a much better job at actually destroying that medical waste.
Well, it sounds like a big need that needs solutions. One thing people might want to know is what made you want to start Waste to H, and what kind of opportunity did you see when you decided to start the company?
Well, I happen to have a long history with this technology because I was in charge of engineering and construction of the very, very first pilot that was built by Japan New Energy in Japan between 2002 and 2005. And at that time already, we were thinking of extracting hydrogen for clean mobility, except that back in 2005, when we were talking about hydrogen, people didn't know where it was. and people didn't really see the need for that. Now there is a need for this. And the need comes not only because of the climate change, global warming, and the issues we have with our atmosphere, but it also comes because of other waste issues like the ocean plastics. It comes because of other issues like the landfills being full to the brim and not really being replaceable. It comes with the other issues with incineration that nobody wants to see in its own backyard. And it also comes, of course, with this emerging hydrogen economy that, well, is badly needed to solve the climate change issues, but that also, I'm not sure whether it is a good thing or a bad thing, but that has been identified by major OECD countries as the way out to the crisis that has been created by this pandemic we are living in right now. So again, this is not necessarily a great thing happening to us because we don't want those pandemics, we don't want pollution, but those are here. And we believe that we are in this perfect storm where we are bringing a solution that solves all these issues at the same time.
Of course. Let me ask you a market question. It certainly seems that European countries are moving fast toward hydrogen and creating opportunities to replace fossil fuels with hydrogen, as you said, in buses and trucks. Do you see demand growing in other parts of the world as well? Demand for hydrogen?
We see inquiries coming from all over the world. We see inquiries coming from Latin America. We see inquiries coming, of course, from the United States and North America. We see inquiries coming from Western Europe, from Eastern Europe, from Asia, Southeast Asia. Interestingly enough, those inquiries are not necessarily motivated by the same goal. Most of the inquiries we have in Northern America, in the US and Canada, are primarily related to waste management. As you know, China in 2017 decided to stop the inflow of waste plastic that it was taking in until then. And this has caused a major problem for the so-called recycling centers we have in the US and in most developed countries, because there is no way out for this plastic any longer. And it literally is piling up everywhere. Well, the recycling companies, as well as the waste management companies, well, they do have a problem that they need to solve now because it's been 3 years now and there's lots of plastic piling up. So that's the kind of demand or the kind of inquiries we receive from North America. Europe, because of those packages, stimulus packages that are being announced, and I think we saw a 13 trillion euro stimulus package that is overall being put up by the European Union. And a lot of these funding schemes will go to the building of this hydrogen economy infrastructure. Well, inquiries from Europe are directly targeted towards hydrogen production. But the result is the same, because when we process waste here in the US, we will be producing hydrogen. And when we produce hydrogen in Europe, we will be processing waste.
What are some of the other benefits to producing hydrogen from waste compared to electrolysis?
Compared to electrolysis, well, the very first one is electrolysis is carbon neutral. It's great. There's not a single carbon atom in the whole value chain, but it will never be carbon negative. We offer the opportunity of, combined with carbon capture and sequestration solutions, we literally can extract CO2 out of the atmosphere and put it back underground where it was 300 million years ago. And that is, if that is not an advantage, well, I don't know what it is. It is a major benefit. Then about hydrogen itself, I may go a little bit into geopolitics and all these things, but what we see is a lot of wars are actually being caused by energy issues. The Pacific War, Second World War, was an issue about oil. The Russia getting into Ukraine was primarily based on natural gas control issue. There is, as we speak, there are rumors and risks of war between Azerbaijan and Armenia. This is also related to power control. Well, the good thing with producing hydrogen out of waste is there will not be any oil-producing countries any longer. So I'm not saying I'm dreaming here of, you know, a big, beautiful world where everybody loves each other, but at least this way of producing energy is definitely more equal and definitely more balanced than having to rely on fossil sources that are located only in a very few selected places.
So maybe we're less likely to fight over waste than countries are fighting over energy resources.
That's exactly what I meant to say, and you said it much better than I would have done.
Do you have any competitors? Are there other companies doing what you're doing?
Oh, yes. Well, we have several levels of competition. Our first level of competition, if I can say so, is electrolysis, because after all, if we consider we are hydrogen producers, well, hydrogen out of electrolysis is a competition. But to go more into detail and more concretely, there are, and it's a good thing because we do want other companies and we do want competitors. There are a few companies in the US and Europe that are offering waste to hydrogen solutions. We, of course, believe we have the best one. And we will be more than happy to demonstrate the fact that we have the best one. But it definitely, building the hydrogen economy is not something that can be done by only one company. It cannot be done by only one process or one technology. And yeah, we do welcome competition. There is competition around. We all have our advantages, benefits, and pros and cons, etc. But yeah, there are a few, and it's a good thing.
Well, Jean-Louis, thank you very much.
Thank you.